radius of the orbit. The radius of the orbit. There are three derivations here. And velocity, the second one is velocity of electron, radius of nth orbit, velocity of electron in nth orbit, energy of nth orbit. These are the three derivations. Radius of the nth orbit, velocity of electron in the nth orbit, and energy of nth orbit. Okay, so these are the three derivations. Now, so we will start with the first one. That is, we started with the electron. So there are two forces balanced. Fe is equal to Fc. Centripetal force is equal to electrostatic force. So when we do this, it is what mv square by r is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 into E square by R square. E square by R square. R and R will get cancelled, implies V square is equal to E square by 4 pi epsilon 0 into mr. Implies we want to just find out velocity, which will be E by under root of 4 pi epsilon 0 into mr. So if you are taking n here, nth orbit, then you have to write n here. This is the first formula, velocity of electron in the nth orbit. Now, we already know that angular momentum mvr is from the Bode's postulate. Here, velocity is equal to what? mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi. This is the formula, okay? mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi. Here, instead of taking mvr, we are taking mv and rn. Okay, it's equal to nh by 2 pi. Then what do we get here? We already know that V square formula. The formula for V square is here. Okay. So we have V square is equal to what? E square by 4 pi epsilon 0 into mr. Okay. We already know that mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi. Here, this formula. So we are writing mr is equal to what? nh by 2 pi n. 2 pi into v. Is that clear? Now we are going to substitute this value here. This value in the place of this. So V square is equal to E square by 4 pi epsilon 0, 4 pi epsilon 0 into what is that? NH by 2 pi V. Okay. NH by 2 pi V or Vn. We can write here. So Vn is equal to what? Under root, I will put everything. E square into 2 pi V and 4 pi epsilon 0 into NH. Okay, this pi and pi will go away, 2, and this will becomes 2. Now, or directly we will cut this first. Better, we'll cut this first. So it will become Vn. So this will go away. Okay, so what we are left with what? Vn is equal to how much? E square by how much it is? So this root will not come on because we have removed that square. So E square by 2 epsilon 0 n into h. This is the second formula. This is the first formula for velocity of nth orbit. That is the second formula for nth orbit. Okay. Now Vn is equal to E square by 2 epsilon 0 nh. Okay, these are the two different formulas to calculate the velocity of electron in the nth orbit. Now I am going for the radius. Okay, so what is the formula here? We already have the formula for radius. What is that? mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi, right? Same formula. So what I am doing here, rn is equal to nh by 2 pi m into Vn. Now I am going to substitute Vn there. Okay, I'm going to substitute Vn there. So what will happen now? So Rn is equal to n into h divided by 2 pi m Vn. What is Vn? E square by 2 epsilon 0 n into h. Rn is equal to n square h square 2 epsilon 0 divided by 2 pi m into E square. Okay. Now what will happen? 2 and this 2 will go away. 2 and 2 will go away. So we are left with what? That is Rn is equal to how much? N square h square epsilon 0 by m E square. If R is equal to 1, implies R is equal to h square epsilon 0 divided by m E square. Is that clear? So now if that is A0 is said to be unit radius, means radius of the first orbit is said to be radius of the first orbit. So what will happen now? When you substitute all the values, h is Planck's constant, epsilon 0 is permittivity of free space, m is the mass of the electron. Okay. So epsilon m is the mass of the electron, E is the charge of the electron. Okay, then what will happen? A0 is equal to what? When you substitute 5.29 into 10 to the power of minus 11 meters. Okay, so this is the formula. So now here once again, radius of the, see from the beginning, there are three derivations here. One is radius, velocity, energy. First we'll start with the, when an electron is revolving in the orbit, so there are two forces which are balanced. That is electrostatic force is balanced with the Coulombic force. So mv square by r is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 E square by r square. Cross multiply, you will get this. Then you remove the square, you will get this. After that, we have angular velocity mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi. Then you have there, okay, this is the, what did we get here? That is square it on both the sides. This one I'm taking, and now I have this, I'm using this formula, applying this formula over here. I want to remove mr. So when I remove that, I got, when I substitute that here, then I get this one and cancel the terms, I'll get this. So I'm left with this. Means I have two formulas. One formula when I have radius, one formula if I know only the orbit number, means first orbit, second orbit, whatever it is. That is enough for me. So these are the two formulas to calculate the velocity. Next one is I want to find out the radius. So I took this r from here and substituted the Vn value over there. Then I got that equation. Then I brought this 2 epsilon 0 nh in the numerator. When I brought it, then I cancelled those terms. Then I got this value Rn. So if n is equal to 1, not r is equal to. If n is equal to, that means we are speaking about the first orbit. Then we are left with this equation. h square by epsilon. H square epsilon 0 by m square. So A0 is the unit radius. If you substitute all the values, Planck's constant, permittivity of free space, mass of the electron, charge of electron, you'll get this answer. Is that clear? All of you? Yes? So energy of nth orbit is given by En. En is equal to minus E square by 8 pi epsilon 0 into n. Sorry, R. This was the formula. Now we are going to substitute R value here. We have the R value. En is equal to minus E square by 8 pi epsilon 0 into n square h square epsilon 0 by m E square. So En is equal to how much? Minus E square m E square divided by 8 pi epsilon 0 n square h square epsilon 0. Okay. So this is the value. Now we'll solve it now. So it will become what? E is equal to what? En equal to minus e power 4 m divided by 8 pi epsilon 0 n square h square epsilon 0. Yeah, can we write epsilon 0 square now better? Yeah, n square, this will go away. So this is the answer. Now when you substitute all these values, these are all constants. Okay, the Planck's constant, mass of the electron, charge of the electron, all are constants. When you substitute that, En is equal to what? En is equal to minus 2.18 into 10 to the power of minus 18 by n square joules. Okay. So that will become how much? It is equal to, in electron volts, it is equal to what? Minus 13.6 electron volt divided by n square. Is that clear? This is the, so if you substitute n is equal to 1, if n is equal to 1, then what will happen? En will be equal to minus 13.6 electron volt. This is the energy of the first orbit. Like that, we can substitute in the place of n, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Again, from the beginning. See, we already got this formula from where? From the first derivation. Then we are going to substitute Rn value here. This is Rn value. Then when you substitute, you get this. Simplify it. We got this. Now substitute all the constant values. You got this. So this is in joules. I want to convert into electron volts. So 1 joule is equal to 1.6 into 10 power of 18 minus 19 joules. Okay. So you got this formula. When n is equal to 1, you get this. Is that clear now? Is it clear? Is this clear?